1833, a grisly clue washed up near the Scottish town of Burnt Island. One of the only pieces to a puzzle now 350 years old. Where is the ferry boat that vanished in a summer storm on a river called the Firth of Forth? And what happened to its royal cargo? Half a ton of silver and gold, the riches of a king. In the 8th year of his reign, Charles I lost a hoard of treasure so valuable it has been likened to the contents of King Tutankhamun's tomb. It is one of the great lost treasures in history.
What Charles's treasure would represent would be the accumulated magnificence of generations. And to have it all in one lot would be a boon to art historians, a boon to historians of monarchy, and a boon to the nation. It would be a complete age on display, recovered for us in miniature.
We know less about Charles I's silver than about the periods before and after. It's simply... So from that point of view, there's a great big gap in European silver history, which the wreck could fill.
What you've got down there is a tomb, a time capsule, and a royal time capsule at that.
Charles I ruled Britain from 1625 to 1649. His reign was riddled with tragedy, most of which he brought upon himself. Charles was arrogant and rigid, heedless of what mattered to his subjects. Some say he was the worst king that Great Britain ever had. His story begins in the independent kingdom of Scotland. Here he was born in the year 1600, the second son of the Scottish king, James VI. A small and sickly infant, Charles was not expected to live. The weak child matured slowly. His legs were frail and he spoke with a terrible stutter. Little attention was paid to the boy's problems because nobody thought he would become king.
He seems to have been quite isolated in the nursery. His father was never fond of him. His mother never took much notice of him. And so he ends up a rather lonely, introverted, shy, painfully inadequate child with real reservations about his own abilities.
When Charles was young, Elizabeth, Queen of England and Ireland, died childless. Next in line was her Scottish cousin, James, Charles' father. Under James, Scotland, Ireland, and England were united into a single kingdom.
17th century England represents for Britain a unique experiment, and that is these three totally separate countries, Ireland, Scotland, England, different churches, different parliaments, and united only with the person of the monarch. They don't have anything else in common, they just have a person in charge. And this means it's going to be very difficult indeed to keep all three of them equally happy.
King James did a reasonably good job ruling the three countries and carefully groomed his oldest son, Henry, to follow in his footsteps. But Henry died of typhoid, leaving the ill-prepared and ill-suited Charles as the royal heir. At the age of 25, the diminutive Scotsman became the second king of the new United Kingdom. The Scots, deeply distrustful of the English, insisted upon their own coronation of Charles in Scotland using the Scottish crown jewels.
The English suggested that if there was a second coronation needed, it should be in London, and that the Scots should send down the Scottish crown jewels, which were of course a separate identity to the English crown jewels, and the Scottish crown, and that he should be crowned in London with the Scottish regalia. But the Scots were too canny for that, and they obviously decided that if they sent the royal jewels down there, they would never see them again. So they said, no, no, send up the king and we'll have him coronated here.
Historian Bob Bryden became intrigued by this second coronation and began to research it. He soon discovered that something had gone drastically wrong. The evidence came from a 17th century account of a journey the king made across the Firth of Forth.
But as he is on the water, in his own sight, there perished one boat following after him, having within her about 35 persons, English and Scottish, his own domestic servants, and 2 of these only escaped with their lives. His Majesty's silver plate and household stuffs perished with the rest.
Bryden dug deeper and discovered the name of the lost ship, the Blessing of Burnt Island, a ferry that regularly carried people and goods across the 7 miles of water between Burnt Island